Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse, and in this recording I'm going to be exploring the astrology of June 2023. So we begin the month with a very expansive feeling because we're going to have Jupiter conjoining the North Node. So this is on the 2nd of June. And then on the 4th of June, we're going to have the full moon in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So the story of Jupiter conjoining the North Node is kind of going to go into this lunation. So when Jupiter joins the North Node, we have an opportunity to evolve, to move forwards, to advance in our spiritual journey, our spiritual progress. And Jupiter can come along as a person who says, hey, come this way, look at this opportunity for growth. So it might be a new job, it might be anything to do with increasing our income in Taurus, or it might simply be a new way of thinking, a new philosophy, a different approach, because Jupiter can speak of our beliefs. And there's certainly something going on here about believing in ourselves when it comes to manifesting in life. So Jupiter says here, all this is available to you to experience here on planet Earth. And the Sabian symbol of this conjunction with Jupiter in the North Node is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So we really get this wonderful, dreamy feeling from this conjunction that there are all these amazing things that are open to us, available to us. However, of course, sometimes we can end up chasing rainbows, chasing the dream, never actually arriving at the end of the rainbow because, of course, it's just an optical illusion. And so the idea with this symbol is to remind us that the gold that we're looking for is always within ourselves. Of course, yes, we want to secure our material resources. We want to live a good life. Of course we do. We want to have enough money and food and enjoyable experiences. That's just life. That's just natural. But the real riches lie within ourselves. And so once we know that, once we know that the gold is within, then we can truly have this abundance in life. So on the back of that story, we have this full moon in Sagittarius. I will be doing a recording over on Patreon to explore this chart in full. But just to bring in one of the stories that I think is important for all of us to be aware of is that this full moon is going to be in a wide square to Saturn. So generally, full moon in Sagittarius, it highlights the need for us to go into new territory, to explore, to expand our world. So this is why it's such an interesting thing that it's coming on the back of Jupiter conjunct the North Node. This is the expansiveness. I want my life to be bigger and better. I want to go places I haven't been before. I want to read books I haven't read before. I want to travel to a new destination. I want to learn. I want to know the truth. And so there's all this feeling of wanting to go places, but then there is that restraint from Saturn. But really Saturn is just saying you need to be thinking about where you're going. You need to define where you're going rather than be focused on what you're coming from. Because sometimes we can really get into the idea of wanting to escape our circumstances and kind of run away. But Saturn is not allowing us to run away. He wants us to run to somewhere. So define where it is you are going. It might feel a bit frustrating to feel held back until you have that clear vision, but it's going to be better for us all to have that clarity of what we are moving towards rather than just to run anywhere that is better than here. On the 5th of June, Venus is going to enter Leo, and this is going to be an extended journey because yes, we are going to have a Venus retrograde this year. So Venus is going to enter Leo on the 5th of June. She will station retrograde almost at the very end of Leo on the 24th of July. She will stay in retrograde motion until the 4th of September and then finally leave Leo on the 9th of October. So we have 4 months of this energy. Generally, as Venus moves into Leo, we are changing the way we approach our relationships, how we approach money, what we define as valuable and important to us. Leo is a fire sign. It is ruled by the sun. So one of the things that we desire or we're attracted to is the idea of being seen. We want to be recognized. Leo is a sign that is associated with the theatre. It's associated with royalty. It's the king of the jungle, the lion that demands attention. Now, this can be a really wonderful creative period with Venus in Leo because we can draw upon that creative energy of the sun and say, yes, I want people to see me. I want to dress up a bit. I want to put some jewelry on that glitters, or I just want to show what I can do as far as my creative projects are concerned. Or maybe I just want to roll around and play with the kids because this is also a sign that is associated with children. And we can really have a wonderful time with children when we have Venus going through Leo. So it really activates our inner child. But the downside is that, of course, sometimes we can fall into attention-seeking patterns of behavior. So Venus in Leo can become the drama queen, stamping her feet, trying to get the attention that she feels that she deserves. But often it's because it's coming from a place of feeling unworthy. You know, it's like we're looking for that attention and validation from someone on the outside because inside we're not feeling good enough. So this is one of the reasons why this can happen. But still, if we focus on the lightness, Venus in Leo can be a very enjoyable period. Yes, we will have to do some reassessing as far as the things that we enjoy and what truly attracts us, who truly attracts us as well. Leo is associated with dating as well. So the idea of needing to enjoy ourselves more, have more fun, engage the inner child and allow ourselves to be seen. These are all the positives of Venus moving into Leo. And I will be recording a video on Venus retrograde in Leo, so there'll be lots more to come about that. On the 11th of June, we get a big movement because Pluto is going to exit Aquarius. He's kind of dipped his toes in, but there is still work to do to finish up everything in Capricorn. So Pluto will move back into Capricorn, which immediately puts it back on that anaretic degree, the final degree of Capricorn. This degree is acute, it is critical, it brings everything into the foreground. It is also somewhat unstable. It really interests me that the Sabian symbol of this degree is a secret meeting of men responsible for executive decisions in world affairs. And it certainly seems like as Pluto has been sort of finishing its journey in Capricorn, there's been a lot of exposure of things that have been happening behind the scenes, especially in relation to the secret meetings of the men responsible for executive decisions in world affairs. I mean, it just feels like it's absolutely literal. And I find this sometimes with Capricorn and also with Saturn when it comes to the Sabian symbols. Sometimes there can be a real literal nature to how they manifest. So Pluto goes back into Capricorn It'll stay on that anaretic degree until the 27th of July, and then it will just kind of go back into the 28th degree of Capricorn. It'll stay in Capricorn now until the 21st of January next year. It'll go back into Aquarius, and then we'll get one more period of Pluto in Capricorn, which will be from the 2nd of December 2024 through to the 19th of November 2024. And that entire period will be Pluto anaretic in Capricorn. So this is why I'm kind of labouring over the point right now, because what we see during Pluto anaretic in Capricorn now is likely to be concluded, echoed, brought into focus again next year when Pluto lands back on that degree. So just watch and see what is happening, particularly out there in the mundane world. Remember, Pluto is a transpersonal planet. It's not personal to us, although certainly sometimes things can feel very personal. When you're having a Pluto transit, as I am, Pluto is squaring my sun right now. So it is important to look at your own chart and just see which house is Pluto going back into if you use whole sign houses. Obviously, if you are like me and use equal house or a different house system, you can just look at where is Pluto moving around in your chart and just see how the energy shifts in that house, because there's something that needs to be finished up. Some kind of deconstruction needs to be concluded. Deconstruction is Pluto in Capricorn. We are deconstructing some aspect of our lives, so that's the house that it's currently going through, so that we can feel more empowered. So give you an example, Pluto in my chart is currently transiting through my 6th house. So Pluto has been kindly helping me to deconstruct the limitations I put on myself around my work, but particularly with my health. I've been very rigid in my approach to my health and my sort of overall well-being. I did not take care of myself, and that has manifested, of course, as kind of illness or difficulties. I have arthritis and a bunch of other things going on. But Pluto has been teaching me that the more I realize that my power is in the now. So this is my 6th house, daily life. What I do today is going to have a long-term effect, Capricorn. So if I take care of myself today, then the future will take care of itself. And that is Pluto moving into Aquarius in this house. So this is just an example of how it's working for me, in the hope that it might help you to think about how it might be working for you. So Pluto goes back into Capricorn. We then have Mercury entering Gemini. So this is, of course, Mercury's home sign, one of Mercury's home signs. He spent a long time in Taurus because we had that retrograde in Taurus. So I'm pretty sure Mercury's going to be quite happy to finally get home. So Mercury moves into Gemini on the 11th of June, and this is going to switch the way that we are thinking, the way we are communicating. It should make things a little bit easier as far as communication is concerned. And it gives us an impetus to find out facts and figures, to talk to people, to make connections, to go back to school. We want the mind to be stimulated when Mercury goes into Gemini. And yes, sometimes it can be a little bit mentally scattered, but generally speaking, it's a good time to talk, to let your voice be heard and to communicate with others. Still with Gemini energy, on the 15th of June, we're going to see dwarf planet Sedna moving into Gemini, and this is incredibly important. Sedna has this huge orbital period of around 11,000 years, and so therefore she spends a long time in each sign, but her orbit is elliptical, so the amount of time she spends in each sign is very variable. But we've seen her in Taurus since the 60s, and during that time we've certainly seen a massive growth in materialism And she has been pushing us and pushing us and pushing us to evolve as far as our relationship to the land is concerned. It's really interesting that as I was preparing this reading during my lunch, I was looking at the news and I saw this story about killer whales ramming into boats, and it seems like it's almost like a coordinated effort. And my immediate thought was Sedna, anoretic in Taurus. She is so trying to get our attention. She is a sea goddess, and in her story, she was betrayed by her father. Eventually, she drowned in the ocean and she transformed into a sea goddess. And the story is that if you treat her well, then she will provide food. If you treat her badly, she will not. And so we are getting this story in many different ways right now, that we must take care of the earth. Remember that because Sedna has been hanging out on this 29th degree of Taurus and then will be moving into Gemini, she is kind of having a conversation with Pluto at the same time. They're kind of working together, that there has to be some kind of significant transformation in how we deal with our resources and how we take care of the planet. And then this story shifts focus as Sedna moves into Gemini and Pluto moves into Aquarius towards the way that we think. It's an evolution of consciousness. These are air signs that are going to be accentuated. So how we communicate with one another, how we learn, how we think, how we use the mind is going to be really brought into focus as Sedna begins this long, slow transit through Gemini. Sedna will be in Gemini right up until 2067. She'll start to leave Gemini in 2065, but she won't enter Cancer fully until 2067. So we have a long period of time here to work with this, around 40 years of evolution around consciousness, what it is to be conscious, what is consciousness. Negatively, we can have a lot of stories about victimization, of betrayal, of suffering and trauma. But positively, we also have the potential for, as I say, transcendence, which is what Sedna can bring. So it is a super important transit, especially because it's going to be engaging with Pluto. Should also be engaging with Uranus when Uranus moves into Gemini as well. So there's going to be lots of stories around this to explore. On the 17th of June, we're going to have Saturn stationing retrograde. So this is the yearly retrograde period, and Saturn will be retrograde until the 4th of November, and he'll go right back to the very beginning of Pisces, 0 degrees of Pisces. So now we are internalizing this Saturn energy. And the idea with the Saturn retrograde is that we now must look within to explore where we are limiting ourselves, where we are holding ourselves back, where we have allowed certain conditioning to stop us from accomplishing the things that we want to accomplish out there in the world. And certainly with Saturn in Pisces, we've got a lot of the story about making our dreams real. And if we want to make our dreams real, then we have to get rid of this conditioning that is stopping us from doing that, and the sort of feeling that we're not good enough, that we're not capable, that we're not able. So if we've been struggling, then Saturn is going to give us this opportunity to reassess and to rework how we approach things so that we can accomplish our objectives later down the line. On the 18th of June, we are going to have a new moon in Gemini. So I will be exploring this in full over on my Patreon. But just to give us a flavour of what this lunation is about, we have the idea of some kind of new start when it comes to how we are thinking, how we are communicating, how we are connecting with one another. So the new moon in Gemini often seeds some kind of idea, something pops into their mind. This is something that I need to explore. We become very curious in Gemini, but we do need to watch that we don't get distracted by something that is not relevant, because this lunation is going to be square to Neptune. So again, we have some kind of prompt to look at whether we are chasing rainbows again, or whether we are making some story up in our minds that is actually not the truth. We've got Juno here as well, sitting right beside the new moon. And Juno wants some kind of commitment, a promise, a contract. She's associated with marriage. So we're trying to bring something together here. But Neptune is distracting us with fantasies and wishes that don't have any sort of basis in reality. And at worst, we can lie to ourselves because we're so invested in the dream that we tell ourselves stories that aren't true. So this is one of the challenges with this lunation, to unravel what is fact and what is fiction. From there, we come to Jupiter's sextile to Saturn. This is on the 19th of June. And this is a constructive aspect, because Jupiter in Taurus, as I was speaking about before, is helping us to expand and develop our resources. So Jupiter in Taurus, and reminding us of the abundance that is available for us. And the connection to Saturn in Pisces. So Saturn now retrograde in Pisces. As I mentioned, Saturn has been trying to consolidate what we feel on a spiritual level to make our dreams real. We need to do that inner work first and foremost. But Jupiter is sort of saying to us, if we do the work, there is an opportunity to advance here. There is a chance for growth. And the inner growth is just as important as the outer growth. So Jupiter sextile to Saturn, they kind of complement one another. Because Jupiter is expansive, Saturn is restrictive, but they can hold each other in check, so we don't go too over the top with Jupiter and we don't get too restricted with Saturn. So this is an ideal time to really think about concrete ways to move towards your desired vision for the life that you want to lead, and to put plans in place. It's an excellent planning aspect with Jupiter sextile to Saturn. Slow growth, of course, is very important with Jupiter going through Taurus, and nothing's going to happen quickly anyway, so you can take your time to develop your ideas. This is also the date as well, talking about time, that Venus will enter the shadow zone of her upcoming retrograde period. So that just gives us a little prompt to say we're going to be revisiting some of this material, particularly in the realms of our relationships and what our heart feels called towards. So we're going to be coming back to some of this material later. And so this is why it's appropriate to take our time. We don't need to rush towards anything under these influences. On the 21st of June, we enter Cancer season as the sun moves into Cancer. This is also another turn in the seasonal wheel, the wheel of the year, because as the sun goes into Cancer in the northern hemisphere, we arrive at summer solstice, and in the southern hemisphere, they arrive at winter solstice. So as the sun goes into Cancer, we are drawn down into ourselves. We are very focused now, because of the illumination of the sun, on matters to do with home and family, and feeling at home in our own skin. So this is important. It's an emotional sign. It's ruled by the moon. And so we need to kind of get in touch with the very foundation of ourselves as the sun moves through the sign of Cancer. We also get a prompt towards healing on the 23rd of June as Mars trines Chiron. So Mars now, of course, in the sign of Leo, where he is much more active and free to follow the dreams and the goals and the wants and the desires, because Mars is naturally affiliated with fire signs. And now we have this sense with the connection to Chiron that we feel brave enough to take action, even if we have sometimes been hurt in the past or we're scared of getting hurt again. And we can also be proactive about initiating some kind of healing process with Mars trying to Chiron. But there is a little bit of a complication that comes through with Mars then squaring Uranus. This is on the 26th of June. And that can be quite an edgy transit. It can be accident prone, for example, often because we're moving too quickly. I mean, Mars in Leo is great for bold moves and taking risks. But if you take too many risks with Uranus involved, the unexpected can happen. So this can be in lots of different ways, whether it's, you're driving the car too fast, or whether it's that you're going to take some kind of risk in life, but there's some kind of unexpected consequence. So be prepared for unexpected consequences with Uranus. Positively, when we mix these two energies together, there is the urge to do something different, to do Mars, different Uranus. So even though it's edgy, and it can sometimes be a little bit of an anxious aspect, there is the courage to take a new road, to do something different than you've done before. And sometimes we have to do that because we need to change things, because we can't change anything if we don't do anything different. So Mars square to Uranus can give us that prompt. Now is the time to act differently from the past so that you can get the desired result. But it needs to be a calculated risk, not just kind of leaping into the fray because, like I said, unexpected consequences. On the 27th of June, Mercury will follow the Sun into Cancer. So where Mercury moves, we have a change in the way that we communicate and a change in the way that we think. So Mercury in Cancer, the mind is also on topics that are associated with family dynamics, particularly in how we talk to one another. And certainly our feelings are going to inform the way we are thinking much more whilst Mercury is in Cancer. So it can be a good time for talking about how we feel positively. Having that conversation with people that we live with, for example, this can be a really constructive way of using this transit, having those conversations and expressing our needs and what's going on deep inside of us. But sometimes if there is a lot of emotional content and we are finding ourselves shut out or shut down by someone else, or we're just finding it difficult to communicate for whatever reason, then sometimes we can sort of withdraw into our shell. And that's the challenge, because Cancer can be a very sensitive sign. And we've already got the Sun going through this sign. So yes, feeling quite sensitive, and therefore it can make it more difficult to communicate our needs. And we can sometimes end up regressing or finding the mind constantly going over the past. Sometimes the past does become more prominent whilst we have the Sun and Mercury moving through this sign, and we find ourselves being a bit more nostalgic, which can be nice. We're a little bit more sentimental with all of this energy here. But if we're constantly going over the past and bringing the past up into conversation to try to sort of make a point to someone, then that might be more challenging. So we just need to watch that kind of tendency. As we come to the very end of the month, on the 30th of June, Neptune will station retrograde. So every year Neptune has a retrograde period. It will be retrograde until the 6th of December. Again, remembering that this is a transpersonal planet. And whilst Neptune is retrograde, like any retrograde, it asks us to go within, to take this energy within ourselves and explore our inner world, in particular relation to the dreams that we have been dreaming. What is it that you have been dreaming of, says Neptune? Is it really going to happen? Is this really possible? Neptune can often unravel certain dreams and wishes and hopes whilst it's in retrograde motion, because we realize where we have been deluding ourselves, where we have been distracted. Neptune says, there are greater dreams than these, my friend. Your imagination is unlimited. Your soul is unlimited. Don't get distracted by these things that aren't real, these shiny objects that aren't real. There is so much more that I can give you if only you will listen to your intuition. So Neptune stationing retrograde, a very soft and gentle but very powerful, like the sea, transit that often brings with it this very soft inner voice that says, please listen to me. What are you feeling deep down here? Let's unravel this. Let's really look at this, because the dreams of your soul, the prompts from your soul, are going to bring you to a life that is far more meaningful. Sometimes when Neptune is retrograde, we find ourselves trying to understand the meaning of things or find the meaning, or maybe we're feeling a bit lost. And so through this process of Neptune retrograde, we have an opportunity to find ourselves through listening to that deep inner voice, the soul's voice, the lighthouse within. This is Neptune stationing retrograde. This concludes my reading for June 2023. I hope you found it helpful. Do click a like and subscribe if you did. And if you would like to hear more from me and support this channel, I do have a Patreon, as I mentioned, so I will leave the link below. And in the meantime, I wish you many blessings on your path.